In this episode of S&box Drama, a big development group has fallen, and there are Furries among us. D.E.V, one of the biggest S&box orgs, is shutting down. On May 13th, the owner of D.E.V, its Rifter, announced that their Discord server will be closed effective immediately. It was made clear that, unfortunately for us, this decision wasn't because of any recent drama. In case you haven't been keeping up with the organizations making games in S&box, D.E.V are a collective of developers that have released a few games, their most popular being Castle Defenders and Tower Resort, the former being one of the biggest games to date. Rifter himself has also released a few other games in his private org, such as Subject Combat Sector and Ultimate Chimera Hunt. The now deleted announcement made by Rifter is the following. As much as it pains me to say this, I'm gonna close this server down. To be clear, this is not out of any recent events or drama. The games that D.E.V have made will probably be moved over to my personal S&box org. For those wondering the whereabouts of Tower Resort, development on it has ceased, and I'll allow anyone to pick up from it. You'll still see me around doing stuff. Anyways, it's been a good one. Farewell, D.E.V. This unfortunately confirms that Tower Resort will not be worked on in the future, despite the positive reception from the community gathered during the playtests. Now, we do have a few interviews coming up, but first, we'll have to catch you up on some previously undocumented drama regarding D.E.V. All of the following events happened during the game jam organized by Three Thieves, aka the most dramatic organization and the best thing to happen to S&box Drama. During the initial stages of the competition, most teams took advantage of the 2 weeks' time to think of a game idea which everyone agreed on. For Smallfish, this process surprisingly took 2 entire days, and Goblin Tide eventually got the most votes out of all, beating other proposals such as Darker P and Peace and Fart by Whitley MF. Unfortunately, it seems that not all organizations were able to agree on which game to work on, D.E.V being one. While we aren't able to see what transpired in their private channels, we can only assume by looking at the fallout that came after. A few members tried to seek refuge in other orgs, hoping that their game idea would get picked up and brought to fruition before the deadline. In the end, D.E.V weren't able to agree on a game to submit, and they silently confirmed that they won't take part in the game jam. Now, let's get to the interview. First up is one of the programmers that left D.E.V a few weeks prior to its shutdown. How was your time developing under the D.E.V org?
Didn't really do much when I was there. Time there wasn't bad. I enjoyed making things that I did, even if there wasn't that much I've done.
Why did you decide to join D.E.V?
Rifter one day asked me if I wanted to join, and because I already was thinking about joining some team, I did.
Which games have you worked on in D.E.V?
I was working on an unreleased project called Union Coup. It was supposed to be inspired by games like Sven Co-op and Synergy. I did some basic hammer entities and fixes. Not much was done on this project.
Why did you decide to leave D.E.V?
From what I remember, I was thinking of leaving for some time before I left. Didn't do much anyway and didn't feel like I was really helpful there. No hard feelings towards any of the members.
We heard that there were some disagreements during the Three Thieves jam, and that led to the org eventually not submitting a game. What really happened?
Part of the D.E.V was selected for the jam team with addition of who wasn't a part of D.E.V. We started work on the jam by coming up with gameplay ideas.
We had a few, but they weren't really fleshed out. Pitching his ideas, but they weren't really gameplay ideas and only ideas like game with cutscenes or story-based game. He was going with the assumption that last jam games were story-based and won. We were trying to explain several times what gameplay ideas is, but he didn't really understand our explanations and kept pitching his non-gameplay ideas. At some point, Mr. got fed up with him and deleted the game jam-related channels. Later, though, he added them back. But this time, we somewhat changed the game idea we wanted to make.
After not having much done on the game and silence from other jam team members, we decided to give up on the jam.
What are you currently working on?
Brick emoji.
And now for the interview with the owner himself. It's Rifter. Which games will you move from D.E.V to your personal org?
The one and only game that was released under D.E.V being Castle Defenders will probably move to my personal org. Looking back at it, a lot of it would benefit a rework, mostly the code.
Is your personal org going to accept developers?
I'll accept help from developers and I will credit accordingly, what role they did, etc. But I won't be accepting them into the org itself. How they'll be helping is via the GitHub repository.
Is there anything you'd like to add to your previous announcement?
Looking back to Tower Resort, I do get moments where I'd like to go back, but projects with a scope of that size can be overwhelming for one or few people.
Will you work, or are you working on a new game in the near future?
I'll continue to work on games within S&box, but I'm keeping projects being worked on to a minimum. Having too many without finishing can be wasteful, hoarding. I'm currently involved in the cinema game mode, under Remscar, a horror VR single-player game, that's on hold currently, and working on my own recreation of an old GMOD horror map.
What really happened during the D.E.V game jam?
I'll only say leadership was lacking and communication was a mess. No further comment.
Do you have any word of advice for any newer developers trying to get into the sandbox scene?
If you're getting into developing on S&box, or really game development as a whole, ideally, you should start small and simple projects so you can have an idea on how things work. At its current state, you'll be likely asking for help on how to do A or B if it's not documented, so don't be afraid to ask.
What do you think about the sandbox default bots having suggestive furry profile pictures?
Holy shit, here they come!
Now onto the next segment. A few members of the community are at an uproar because of furries invading their single-player games. To be more specific, when spawning in a bot, they get assigned a username and, unlike Garry's mod where it would always be the default image, a seemingly random profile picture. I say seemingly random because the usernames come from a list of Simpson characters and the avatars come from a list of predetermined pictures, some of which are cropped furry people. Bots are an essential tool for developing and populating multiplayer games, especially now that not many people have access to Sandbox, which is why many developers were uncomfortable with some of those profile pictures being featured, either because they want their game to be family friendly or they may think it comes off as unprofessional. In fact, you may be able to spot one in Eagle One's Grand Prix dev blog, permanently staining their reputation and possibly losing them their sponsorship deal. I was able to collect a few opinions of developers on this matter, some of them requested to be censored, so I'll be using an AI voice to read them.
Hello, Mr. Ubre. Suggestive furry profile pictures should only be allowed in case of it being a rodent.
I personally think the furry avatar on bots is too far even for face punch. You know who you are. I don't know if I want to keep working in S&box after this incident. Feeling extremely hurt, and I hope that they apologize ASAP.
What the spruce?
Hello, you there! This is about the furry drama. I think porn is maybe not good. It is unprofessional and makes Matt sad. I love Matt. He is handsome. God bless America. Also make a really obnoxious drill sergeant. I voice read this out.
Dearest Ubby Wubby, Furry. Real Big Boris.
Personally, Facepunch lost me with this one. Let's keep in mind that S&box's main demographic will be comprised of gullible middle schoolers eager to spend their allowances on my games.
Hello, Ubri from Small Ape Development Team. I've been contacted regarding recent furry porn profile pictures in the S&box game. I am here to take part in your interview. Silly cat emoji. Forgive the cat emoji. My keyboard is having malfunctions. Silly cat emoji.
With the help of a developer known as Duck, we were able to determine the source of the profile pictures. It seems to be a collection of the top 100 Steam users ranked by level, which usually indicates how much money they've spent or how many achievements they've collected. Looking through this list provided to us by SteamDB, some of us may recognize them as the same ones used for bots in Sandbox. Please keep in mind that it is unknown if this is part of the Steamworks API or a deliberate choice by Facepunch. Having said that, we can see a few profile pictures that some may find problematic. In fact, I'll probably censor them, mostly as a gimmick because I don't actually have Google Ads enabled. But on that note, please do not try to reach out to any of the individuals on this list. They have nothing to do with this drama and you'll probably get ignored. Speaking of reaching out, we were able to get in contact with the owner of one of these problematic avatars, and they politely refused to comment on the situation. This marks the end of this episode of S&box Drama. Stay tuned for any updates and remember to join our Discord server.